What's going on, guys? K-Pine here and welcome back. And in this video, I'll be featuring what is quite possibly the best core in the Scroll Cup that includes a meta titan of the past in Lantern and Shadow Gallade. Lantern covers those flyers that Gallade is weak to, and Gallade has the grass coverage, let alone amazing coverage in general, that Lantern is weak to. I'm using Shadow Gallade as a safe swap to bait out those flyers Gastrodon doesn't want to see, and Shadow Gallade is deadly on the safe swap. You give it that 1-2 Psycho Cut lead, and it's forcing shield advantage against those flyers like Mantine and Mandibuzz. I don't think where my opponent has had a flyer in the back, the Gallade safe swap hasn't baited it out to set up Gastro. And speaking of Gastrodon, I threw it in the back pretty much to give Toxapex nowhere to go, especially because you see it in the back a lot along with electric types. Now this does make me ABA weak to a grass type lead, however, they are very few and far between. Plus, this team puts in work. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Lantern into Gallade. Now you may think this is one of those core breakers for the team since they do have access to the grass move in Leaf Blade and it paces to it very quickly. However, Lantern is able to take a Leaf Blade from both the regular Gallade and the Shadow Gallade. Now, since this is the regular Gallade, I like to build up to the Thunderbolt and then bait with the Surf. They shield it every single time because it's a Gallade, they're glassy, they'll respect it. And then I pivot into my own Gallade, check for that flyer, as well as save my Lantern for later. Now they end up going for Synchronoise, which is a little bit of an interesting moveset. Honestly, they should probably just go in straight Leaf Blades here, but either way, on the regular Gallade, you build up to that Thunderbolt, bait with the Surf, and then pivot. You will then be able to outpace to take out their Gallade if they go down both shields here, which they do. And then they bring in a Lantern, and oh my gosh, they're bringing Lantern into my Gallade here. They must be extremely weak to it. And I have all this energy built up as well. So Gallade's going to go on to an absolute rampage. Just throw the Surf right away and then pivot into your own Gallade. No need to build up to Thunderbolt because at that point, the Sparks plus the Surf will do a lot of damage. They bring in their own Gallade, and due to the proper overfarm, we outpace, land that Leaf Blade. In comes their Gastrodon, and oh my gosh, Shadow Gallade on an absolute rampage, able to 1v3 the opponent as the Leaf Blade one-shots the Gastro, and it goes down. GG's. Next battle, we lead Lantern into Brionne. Now this is becoming a little bit more common as the cup goes on, a Charm Brionne Lead, since it does have access to Aqua Jet as well, which is another buff move for the season. They pivot into a Gastrodon, and gotta be quick on your response with your Shadow Gallade, because that way you will be able to outpace to your 2 Leaf Blades before they reach 2 Body Slams and not have to force you to throw in like alignment or anything like that. Now, the interesting thing here is that if your opponent does, in this situation, just double shield and then farm down, they will be able to take switch like that. But if they throw a move at all during it, then you will be able to shield and get off 3 Leaf Blades to maintain switch advantage. Now, my opponent does have a Razor Leaf Shift Tree in the back, and that is absolutely terrible for me to see. However, Lantern does clutch up in this situation, able to hang on and get to 2 Surfs. Have to hope this is just enough to put it in 1 Mud Slap range, but it doesn't look like it is. Shift Tree is glassy, but did put in work into this matchup because I'm going to take just a little bit too much damage from the Razor Leafs there, where that Brionne is still basically full health and I won't be able to take it out from this range. So Earth Power does land, does do some nice damage, but they get the Charm down before we get the Mud Slap down, and my opponent is able to take that one. GG's. Next battle, Lantern into Scrafty. Pretty good lead for us here, especially because Scrafty does have slower pacing since that counter nerf. We make it to the Thunderbolt. We're just going to fire it off right away. It's going to do some nice chip damage to Scrafty, and since that Thunderbolt has landed, I can just go for a Surf from here. They do fire off that Foul Play, but I actually don't go for the Surf. I pivot into Gallade to, you guessed it, check for that flyer. We bait out the Air Slash Mandibuzz, and with a proper overfarm, as well as on good timing, we'll be able to land 1 close combat and a second one before they farm us down. And yeah, this does KO the Mandibuzz. 2 close combats from Shadow Gallade, do force switch or that shield. So we get that shield, which is extremely nice here. as well as the fact that we baited out the Mandibuzz. Gastrodon does not have to see it. At this point, Lantern's job is to just tank all this energy, as well as save that shield for the Gastrodon hit there. So we're going to load up on energy, try and go for the farm down. Can't quite get it, so I'm going to fire off the Surf. I did lose track a little bit there, so I throw on Alignment. Looks like I could have done one more Spark, but either way, I would have had to throw a Surf regardless. Now they swap into a more Pekko. I bank a Surf and then pivot. Like I said, that Scrafty should just about be in Surf range. So that's where that is going to be a little bit more useful in the end game. Or if the more Pekko swaps out, after that Mud Slap damage is done to it, the Surf will be able to knock it out as well. Scrafty does get to a foul play. And here I just have Widcon of firing off his Body Slam. If they reach another move, which they probably wouldn't have, but if they did, that would have been my loose con. Because I know that I'm only one Mud Slap off my second Body Slam, and the more Pekko's far off their next move. So I get the shield with the Body Slam, and then combo play with the Lantern as down goes the more Pekko from the Surf. GG's. Next battle, Lantern into Annihilape. We build up to the Thunderbolt and bait with the Surf. Now, Annihilape, if they're Shadow, they're probably just running Rage Fist, Ice Punch. So they're most likely just going to go for the Rage Fist right away. Which in that case, that's probably just best case scenario because you don't have to worry about a close combat bait or anything like that. Surf does get shielded, and then I'm going to pivot Gallade. It doesn't matter if they give up the shield there or they let the Surf go. You're still going to want to pivot the Gallade right after you build up to the Thunderbolt because you will outpace to the Leaf Blade. And if it's the Shadow Annihilape there, you'll force both shields from them or just straight up take them out with that Leaf Blade. Or if they let it go, you will take them out or force their first shield, of which in that case, you will shield in return and just Psycho Cut them down. I do have an example of a regular Annihilape or non-Shadow Annihilape later in the video because it plays out just a little bit differently. Similar idea, but plays out just a little bit differently. And they bring in a Guzzlord, get the final shield with the close combat. Now I bring in my Gastrodon here. This should just about be Earth Power range, does about half health to the Guzzlord, which it does. In comes more Pekko. And at that point, the game is over because I still had a shield. GG's. Next battle. Lead Lantern into Toxapex. Fantastic lead. Now, if they swap out of this lead, you don't necessarily need to swap out yourself because you have the Gastrodon in the back. Just make sure you get switch advantage and you're good to go. But in this case, my opponent stayed in, tried to catch a Thunderbolt onto the Gastrodon, but were patient, constantly over farming, and are able to answer their Gastro very quickly with our Gallade. So I overfarm here, go for the next Leaf Blade, and now this one I will have to throw on Alignment if I want to get this off before they get their next Body Slam off, which is very, very risky to do, but it paid off since it was a CMP tie, and I'm like, hey, since they have a Toxapex lead, I don't necessarily need switch here, so I'm just going to let this go and basically close it out with my Gastro or give their Pex nowhere, essentially giving their Pex nowhere to go in the end game. Now, if it was a lead scenario where I needed to keep switch, I would have shielded their second move, just so my Gallade can, reach that third Leaf Blade and take switch. Now, what I've started doing in future battles after this one is instead of throwing, those 4 Psycho Cuts and then that Leaf Blade to then force me to have to throw an Alignment to fire off the second Leaf Blade before they reach your second Body Slam, I've started just throwing 1 Psycho Cut and then a Leaf Blade for good timing, of which if they shield, I will then throw 2 Psycho Cuts to their 2 Mud Slaps. So not quite perfect timing, but close enough in order to justify forcing their second shield first if they want to go down 2 shields instead of forcing you to give up your second shield. Now they have the Gastrodon in the back. We have our Lantern with a ton of energy, of which this is Surf range. So Surf does land and down goes the Gastro. GG's. Next battle. Lantern into Sableye. Now this is a fairly good lead for the Lantern here, and a fairly positive one in the zeros, which you're going to play out because most of the time Shadow Glade, as we know, with shields just runs absolutely riot. But I like to load up to the Thunderbolt and bait with the Surf. I have a very high ranked Lantern, so if you do as well, you'll most likely be able to do this, of which if you get the bait successful, and your opponent goes for double foul play, you will be able to survive the ensuing Shadow Claws and make it to the Thunderbolt, of which forces a shield and switch advantage in this situation, as you'll see right there, or forces both shields from your opponent, of which if that's the case, will just come in with their Gastrodon afterwards. They come in with their own Gastro and a shield advantage. This Gastro is just as good as dead. Fire off the Sleep Blade right away before they reach the first Body Slam. They do give up a shield, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to give up a shield in return. Make sure I see the Mud Slap come through before I throw my next Leaf Blade. So I throw one Psycho Cut. They swap out to save their own Gastro, but since I have my own that's now on their Toxapex, if this game wasn't over already with the shield advantage Gallade, it definitely is now. So 3 Mud Slaps, then the Earth Power. It's going to do some very nice damage to the Toxapex. Takes it out, in fact. Now in comes their own Gastro, and with that proper overfarm, we're able to outpace to this Earth Power before they reach theirs. And it seems at this point, my opponent has just closed their app since they know it's over. So Earth Power lands, and I will Mud Slap that down. GG's. Next battle. Lantern into Annihilape. So it's that regular Annihilape situation I was talking about. Similar idea in terms of loading up to the Thunderbolt and then firing off the Surf. Where here my opponent makes it easy. They just go for the Rage Fist right away. If they go for the close combat, then you'll survive it and watch for their potential catch if it's not CMP. But yeah, build up to Thunderbolt, go for the Surf. If they no shield the Surf, you swap into your Gallade right away and you will outpace to this Leaf Blade. Not outpace, but you'll win the CMP tie to the Leaf Blade before they reach their next Rage Fist, forcing them to go down a shield if they want to keep their move, or make a catch, which they do in this situation. So it's a very nice catch by my opponent, but they only go for Psychic Fangs there, so that's perfectly fine. I can survive it and go for another Leaf Blade. If your opponent lets the Surf go, you come in with your Gallade, you CMP tie them, they shield the Leaf Blade, you can just shield their move back and Psycho Cut them all the way down, right? So you're in a great situation. But if you go for the Surf with your Lantern, you know, baiting the Thunderbolt, and they shield it, same thing. Swap into your Gallade right away. This is a little bit different compared to the regular Ape to the Shadow Ape. You do not want to CMP tie them with your Leaf Blade because that Leaf Blade does not quite KO that Ape. You want to overfarm. That allows you to watch for the catch, as well allows you to maximize energy, of which Shadow Gallade energy management is very crucial there. So you will shield their Rage Fist, then overfarm more, and then fire off your Leaf Blade. 2 before they reach their next Rage Fist, just so you can, you know, be sure that if they shield it, you'll then be able to throw your second Leaf Blade as well. They come in Azu, land the Earth Power. We shield up their move, which is just the Ice Beam. But we're looking for a Mud Slap down here. Not able to quite get it, but I am at the back-to-back Body Slams at this point. And I do know that the Azu is still 1 bubble off their next move. So I could either just throw the Body Slam there or play it safe to confirm this Body Slam will KO in CMP tying the Azu. GG's. Next battle. Lead Lantern into Shadow Annihilape. Okay, so Shadow Annihilape earlier, regular Annihilape. And now back to that Shadow. We know how to play this. Build up to that Thunderbolt and then go for the Surf. Opponent goes for the Rage Fist right away like they normally do. Find off the Surf, see if they want to shield this one or not. Surf coming through. Does get shielded. Now we're just going to swap into our Gallade and go for the Sleep Blade right away. And here you'll see they do CMP tie us. And if they want to get off this Rage Fist, they will have to give up a shield. Otherwise, it will KO. So now they're down shields. And my Shadow Gallade is just going to ramp up and destroy them because they didn't swap into a Flyer right away. So it's pretty safe at that point to assume they don't have a best answer to one. Of which there you see they tried to catch the Leaf Blade but aren't able to. Close combat lands, one-shots the Guzzlord just as quickly as it came in. It is now gone. So from here, I can bring in my Gastrodon, get the farm down after tanking this first Rage Fist, I bring in Gastrodon there, not Lantern, just because I wanted to save some health on my Lantern just in case I needed it in the end game. Turns out I don't, as it's a Charm Meowscarada, but... And you'd be like, oh no, it's a grass type. It's going to core break you. Not at all. Meowscarada is so glassy. Look at how much these non-stab body slams do. Just chunk away as we do get the Simul, but with Lantern still alive, we are able to take that one. GG's. Next battle, Lantern into Shadow Glade. So we saw the regular Glade earlier in the video, and now we have a Shadow. I'm not even going to build up to a Thunderbolt in this one. I'm just going to fire off the Surf as soon as I get it, because the Surf will just about KO them. And if the Surf lands, you'll be able to Spark down before they reach their second Leaf Blade. So they're almost always going to shield it, of which you see the shield there, bam, swap out into your own Gallade, and you're good to go. If they continue to shield, you will continue to shield back, so on and so forth. Or you bait out the Flyer, which is a Mantine, so I can't go for the close combats here like I would against the Mandibuzz. I'm going to go against his Leaf Blades, which are neutral. As you'll see, 2 Leaf Blades do just about take out the Mantine as well. So it does force a shield from my opponent, which is fantastic here. And now I can just let it go. Bring in my Lantern. Even though we did take a Leaf Blade's worth of chip from that Shadow Glade earlier in the game, we're not quite in Ace or Water Pulse range. So we're going to get some very nice spark damage off here. Water Pulse lands. We go for the Sparks. They do snipe us with a Guzzlord, but the good news for us is that we do have our Gastrodon and a shield there. Bad news, I get denied a Mud Slap. And now I think that Mud Slap denial might cost me the game. Because as you know, it does about 50% to a Guzzlord. And there I couldn't CMP tie because I needed as much energy as possible. But if I got that Mud Slap through, I would have been able to throw one before their crunch, stay extremely healthy, and then, you know, play out the end game and just body slamming the Mantine and Gallade. So fortunately, I think that denial cost me there, but would have been a close one either way. GG's. Next battle, Mantine Lead, swap into a Shadow Quagsire. You got to be very quick on this one too, because if they get a 2 Mudshot lead, they can now win the 1 shield scenario if they're running Aqua Tail. But if you're very quick on the response into your own Shadow Gallade, you will outpace to this second Leaf Blade or on the CMP tie to their second Aqua Tail, of which allows you to control shield advantage. Down goes Quagsire. See if they want to bring that Mantine back in, which they do. Now I'm going to overfarm, play to the possible CMP tie of that Aerial Ace, but my opponent's overfarming. They're smart. They know not to play to it. And I'm just not going to quite reach the second Leaf Blade, but that's okay. We have the Lantern for it. Now they have their own Gastrodon in the back, and this could get a little tricky since we both have shield advantage, and they're up a Mud Slap at this point. But Lantern puts in surprisingly more work than you think it does. And I shield expecting the Earth Power, but they bait with the Body Slam. So very nice bait by my opponent. I'm going to full send the Earth Power, hoping they call a bait, which they don't. So now this is a little bit tricky. Fortunately, I do hang on just barely to get off this little Body Slams with a chip. And this is very nice because it now puts their own Gastrodon in Surf range. And I mean, their Gastrodon probably would have been in Surf range after the Spark damage anyways, but this helps confirm that. So we just throw 1 more Spark, throw this Surf to take him out, and with my Lantern, probably around 40 HP, yeah, there's nothing this Mantine can do. They don't have enough of an energy advantage here to be able to flip it, where I am able to outpace them to the Surf, which will be enough to take out the Mantine, and down it goes. GG's. Next battle, we lead Lantern into another Charm Brionne. See, in this situation, my opponent is going to swap out into that Gastrodon as well. Quick on the response, and we'll see if I play it properly here this time. My opponent throws on alignment, give me a free Psycho Cut, which now just confirms I'm good here. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I don't play it how I recommend playing it this time. I would have just thrown 1 Psycho Cut and then the Leaf Blade, force that shield, and then make sure I get off the next one. However, I get a little bit fortunate there in that overfarm, because instead of throwing on alignment like I did last game, I do throw on good timing expecting my opponent to try and do the same, which they do. So that ended up working out in our favor there. And now my opponent is forced to let it go. They don't get switch advantage. Gastrodon's gone. We outpace to the Thunderbolt on our Lantern, and my opponent they don't want to play anymore, so they can see GG's. I gotta say, I'm enjoying the Scroll Cup meta. It seems like one that allows for a decent bit of flexibility, which is always nice in these limited formats. But yeah, both Lantern and Gastrodon are very strong picks and put in work, but I gotta say, Shadow Gallade was the team MVP. It's glassy, but boy does it hit hard and have a lot of sweeping potential. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.